Halloween 2 from 1981. Happy Halloween, everybody. Last year I did a video for the original Halloween movie, so I figured why not follow it up this year with the sequel, which in my opinion is not nearly as good as the original. Bold statement, I know. I suppose it has its moments, but overall I can kind of take it or leave it. It is the movie that introduced the idea that Laurie Strode is Michael Myers' sister. There's absolutely nothing to suggest this in the first movie, but John Carpenter and Deborah Hill felt that they really needed a reason for Michael Myers to be going after Laurie again. And although John Carpenter didn't direct this one, he and Deborah Hill did write it, and they wrote it kind of against their will. They really had no interest in doing a sequel. But, movie studios always feel the need to turn things into franchises, so this is what we got. And the 2018 Halloween reboot completely ignores this movie and all the other Halloween sequels and makes Laurie no longer Michael's sister. I mean, honestly, the Halloween movie timeline is insane. I know I said this in my video for the original Halloween movie, but it is more insane than a science fiction or superhero franchise. Ones that have been rebooted a dozen times. Basically, the franchise has not one, but two soft reboots, which does not even include a full-on complete reboot that was made by Rob Zombie. Continuity in these movies is fucked. And this movie right here is where it all started. And that's kind of why I hold the first movie above all others, because it doesn't have all that baggage. And although this movie is just kind of mediocre in my opinion, I still think there are some fun moments and crazy moments that hopefully will be worth talking about. So here we go. Halloween 2 from 1981, directed by Rick Rosenthal, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Pleasance, Lance Guest, and Dick Warlock. Yeah, that's his name. That should be the name of a slasher movie killer. Not something boring like Michael Myers, but whatever. The movie opens up with the ending of the first Halloween movie, kind of. It's a little different. After Loomis looks out the window and sees Michael is gone, he heads outside. And the neighbor comes over to see what the commotion is, which is a little weird. He clearly must have heard the gunshots. Why isn't he taking this seriously? And why did all the screaming from the events of the first movie not alarm him? I don't know. But he and Loomis have this exchange.
Is this some kind of joke? I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight.
You don't know what death is.
Sick burn, Loomis. You sure showed him. And I love how he just turns and runs off. Where the fuck is he going? He just runs away into the night like a complete lunatic. And after the credits, Sheriff Brackett pulls up and meets Loomis. And Loomis is losing his mind.
I shot him 6 times. What? I shot him 6 times. I shot him in the heart.
Can't have gotten very far. Come on.
I shot him 6 times. Yeah. This guy, this man, he's not human.
I mean, Loomis has always been a little wacky, but this movie is where he really starts to lose it. And it's funny that he says, I shot him 6 times, because that makes sense, and that is what happens in the first movie. But in the opening scene of this movie, he actually shoots him 7 times. And of course, that should be impossible with a 6-shot revolver, unless he can reload with the speed of Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption or some shit, which I doubt. And then it shows some kind of POV shots of Michael Myers walking around town, and he goes into someone's house. He just opens the screen door, because no one locks their doors in this era. And it seems like he might kill this middle-aged couple or elderly couple who are just sitting around watching Night of the Living Dead, which is interrupted by a news report about the murders that took place in the previous movie, which makes no sense. We were just at the house the cops are not even there yet. So how did the news pick this up already? No clue. And it seems like Michael Myers might kill this old couple, but all he does is steal a kitchen knife from the kitchen. I don't know why Michael seems so selective with his kills in this movie. Some people he ignores, other people he goes right after. And despite stealing this knife, Michael doesn't really use it again. He'll spend most of the movie using some kind of scalpel as his weapon of choice. So it's kind of bizarre. And back at the Doyle house, Laurie is being transported to the hospital by a couple of EMTs named Jimmy and Bud. And Jimmy kind of knows Laurie. He says his brother goes to school with her. And over at the hospital, there is a mother and her son going to the ER, and the kid has a gigantic razor blade sticking out of his mouth, which is fucking insane. I know this is kind of based on an urban legend. I'm not sure if there's ever been an actual kid who ate Halloween candy that had an actual razor blade in it. I just have to wonder what kind of candy would be able to fit a blade this size in it. And who is the psychopath in Haddonfield, the other one besides Michael, who is trying to kill children with booby-trapped Butterfingers? I mean, who does this shit? Maybe this kid had the misfortune of eating one of the apples that the old guy was giving out in Night of the Demons. That's another movie that takes place on Halloween that has the razor blade thing. Check out my video on it if you're interested. Anyway, the mom brings the son in and they have to wait, which is kind of nuts. This kid is literally bleeding from the mouth with a metal razor blade stuck in his tongue, but you're going to ask him to have a seat and fill out paperwork? Okay. I guess Laurie's superficial injuries are considered more serious. She has a hairline fracture in her foot and a stab wound on her arm, which is really more like a scratch. I mean, look at it. I mean, is she going to die from this? I doubt it. But they tend to her, and the doctor is named Mixter, and he was at his country club tonight, and the nurses suspect that he's drunk. So that's just fantastic. And they want to sedate Laurie so she falls asleep. I have no idea why. I mean, if I went to the hospital and all I needed was an x-ray and some stitches, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't need to knock me out for that. It's not major surgery, but maybe they want to sedate her because she's a little hysterical. But I think that's kind of understandable given the circumstances. Why don't you just maybe give her a Xanax or something? Did Xanax exist back in 1978? Who knows? I'm just spitballing. Give her a glass of wild turkey. I mean, just, you don't have to knock her out is what I'm saying. She's just scared. I also don't know why there is no cop guarding her. I mean, she has been attacked by a serial killer who is still at large. Do you think they could maybe assign a cop to just hang outside her door for the remainder of the movie? That would be nice. As a matter of fact, no cop in this movie shows any interest in Laurie's well-being at all. For one thing, she is literally a witness. Do you think maybe they could, I don't know, question her a little bit to see what she might know about this guy that tried to kill her? I guess not. And elsewhere in Haddonfield, Loomis and Sheriff Brackett see a guy in the William Shatner mask. He looks just like Michael Myers. Loomis chases after him. He even gets his gun out to try to shoot him, which is fucking nuts. And then this happens. And a word of warning. If you have a problem with violence against ragdolls, this scene may be unsettling to you.
Stop! Shoot! Stop! Stop!
I mean, what the fuck, man? This scene blows my mind every time I see it. I cannot believe that this is in the movie. Where do I even begin? First of all, I know that he is wearing the same mask as Michael Myers, but if you remember in the first movie, he stole it from a store. This is not a unique mask. This fucking thing is mass-produced. So the fact that Loomis is freaking out at the mere sight of it makes him look like a completely unhinged moron, which is exactly what he is in this scene. Second of all, The cop car comes flying down this street, going fast enough to send Marty McFly back to 1955. It plows into this fucking kid and smashes him into some other van that must have been hauling nitroglycerin or some shit, because it goes up like a mini Chernobyl. I mean, what the fuck? And the cop who was driving has the audacity to say he came out of nowhere. No, he didn't. You came out of nowhere, you dumb fuck. And then Brackett is demanding to know if it's Michael. And it's like, how the fuck can we tell? This guy is crackling like a log right now. All of these people should be in jail. Especially Loomis, because it's pretty clear that this was not Michael Myers. I mean, first of all, he's not big enough to be him. Second of all, he's carrying a little trick-or-treat bag. He's a teenager. Do you think Michael Myers murdered 3 people and then went trick-or-treating? It's absurd. And most of this is on Loomis, because the only reason he crosses the street is because Loomis is trying to shoot him. So of course the dude is like, geez, I better get the fuck out of here. There's lunatics out here tonight. And then when he gets turned into a bouillabaisse by this cop car doing 100 miles an hour down a residential street, we don't even find out why he was going so fast. What was the emergency? It's absolute madness. And another cop car pulls up, and a guy named Deputy Hunt steps out and talks to Sheriff Brackett. He says they found 3 bodies across the street from the Doyle house, and one of them was the sheriff's daughter, Annie. So Brackett is obviously freaking out. He finally knows what happened to his daughter. He and Loomis head back to the scene of the crime, the crimes that they had nothing to do with anyway. And at the hospital, Jimmy wakes up Laurie and offers her a Coke, and she cannot stop smiling at him. It gets flirtatious, which is absurd given what has happened to her tonight. It's also weird that he's, falling for this high school girl. I mean, how old is Laurie supposed to be? I guess she could be a senior, but it's still a little weird if you ask me. I mean, maybe they're closer in age than it seems. I don't know. Can you be an EMT right out of high school? Who knows? Moving on. Jimmy gets to talking to Laurie, and she tells her that the guy that committed the murders was Michael Myers, the same guy who killed his own sister when he was a kid. And Laurie asks, why me? Why did he come after me? And it's just, get a hold of yourself, Laurie. Will you please? Why anybody? Why did he kill Annie? Why did he kill Linda? Why did he kill Linda's boyfriend? Why did he kill and eat a dog? Why did he kill a random girl in the beginning of this movie that I didn't even talk about? It's because he's a fucking psychopath. And that's why, in my opinion, this movie is kind of dumb, because it felt like it needed a reason to have Michael going after Laurie again. So they made him Laurie's secret sibling. And it's just so unnecessary. Like, why not just have him go to the hospital to get her simply because Laurie is the one that got away and he wants to finish what he started? It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So moving on. Sheriff Brackett arrives at the scene of the crime, and he sees them taking away Annie's body. And the actress who played Annie in the first movie came back for this one scene just to play a dead body. How great is that? And naturally, the sheriff is inconsolable. He says he's got to go home to tell his wife before anyone else does. And he leaves Deputy Hunt in charge. And I kind of like that. I like that Brackett doesn't go on some kind of cliche vendetta. He just wants to go be with his family. Of course, in the reboot movies from a few years ago, he will return and go on a vendetta, but not right now. And I think that makes sense. And Loomis tells Hunt that they have to be sure that the guy they ran over is Michael. So he asks for a dentist to meet them at the morgue, which is also kind of weird to me, but whatever. At the hospital, the head nurse comes in and talks to Laurie, and she says they're trying to get a hold of Laurie's parents, but they can't seem to find them. I guess they went out partying, but no one knows where. I mean, how bad are you as a parent to let your kid get hunted down by a psycho in not one, but 2 movies? Where are this kid's parents? And the head nurse discovers that the phones are out, which might explain why they can't get a hold of her parents, but the implication is that the phones being out is a very recent occurrence. A security guard goes to investigate why the phones are down, and good old Dick Warlock shows up and smashes him in the face with a claw hammer. Tragic. So Michael is already here at the hospital. And at the coroner's office, the dentist examines the charred body of this poor bastard that got run over. Why it has to be a dentist, I have no clue. I mean, I get that he's looking at his teeth to try to determine his age, and I guess that makes sense, but I would think a professional coroner would be even better at determining that. No? I mean, where the hell is Quincy, medical examiner, when you need him? He'd show up and tell you it was murder, because it was. And then he'd solve the murder. This is a very dated reference, I understand that, but if you've ever seen the show that I'm talking about, Quincy is a guy who would look at a dead body and then spend 40 minutes trying to convince everyone in the world that it was murder. And they would say something like, "You're crazy, Quincy. He slipped and fell on his own dildo." And he would say, "No, it was murder. Don't you understand? I'm telling you, someone bludgeoned him to death with that dildo." Anyway, that's who they need for this situation. And fun fact, Jamie Lee Curtis, in her very first on-screen acting role, was in an episode of Quincy where she had only one line. See? I managed to tie it back into Halloween somehow. Clumsily, but we got there. Anyway, the dentist determines that the victim is maybe 17 or 18 years old. But Michael Myers is 21. And as I said, the victim is also, like, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 inches shorter than Michael. So you'd think none of this would be necessary, but whatever. So Loomis says they have to assume that he's still alive, and Deputy Hunt orders the search to continue. They head over to the old Myers house, and half the town is trashing it. Word has obviously gotten out that Michael is back in town, and people are pissed. But thankfully, no one is shouting "Evil dies tonight" in this movie.
Evil dies tonight!
Evil dies tonight!
All right, evil dies tonight! Not evil dies tonight!
God, I hate that fucking movie. Anyway, some teenagers talk to Loomis and Hunt, and they say they're worried about Ben Tramer. He's 17, he had a mask on, and he was a little bit drunk. So it's pretty much confirmed that the kid that Loomis and the cop killed is Ben Tramer. Poor kid was just looking for booze and candy on Halloween night. Tragic. And Ben Tramer is also mentioned in the first Halloween movie. Laurie says she has a crush on him. So Loomis and this cop who drives like Dominic Toretto killed Laurie Strode's crush. They crushed her crush and blew him up. It really is a rough night for this girl. And back at the hospital, a somewhat lazy and absent-minded nurse named Karen gets pranked by Bud, the EMT who was working with Jimmy. She goes to check on a patient, and he scares her by hiding in the bed. And I have no earthly idea what happened to the patient she was supposed to be checking on. Did Bud stick some sick person in a closet so he could go hide in his bed and scare Karen? Who the fuck knows? And she tells him he is the biggest jerk she's ever met. And then she kisses him. I feel like she's sending mixed messages here. I also feel like the movie itself is sending the wrong message. Act like an asshole, and maybe a moronic nurse will kiss you. And Bud tells her that he wants her to come to the therapy room with him. She wants to, but she says she's supposed to be looking after her patients, which are babies, by the way. Yeah, she works in the maternity ward, and she keeps saying that she needs to get back to the kids. I would imagine that's who she should be tending to. And if you're going to shirk your responsibilities, are you really going to do it for this guy? Imagine getting fired from your job because you were fucking a guy named Bud. Embarrassing. And doesn't he have responsibilities too? It's Halloween night, and he drives an ambulance. What if they get a call? It's mental. Also, a few minutes ago, Bud was sitting in a break room, casually smoking weed from what looks like a roach clip. I mean, holy shit. What is this hospital? Anyway, she does agree to go to the therapy room with him, and they sit naked in a hot tub. Michael sneaks in and turns up the temperature. It gets too hot, and Karen wants Bud to go turn it down. He gets out of the tub, and of course, we have to see his horrendous asshole when he does it. And he goes to the control room area, and he's attacked by Michael. And Karen doesn't notice or hear a thing, somehow. And Michael turns the hot tub up to full blast, even though Karen is already out of it and drying off. She says she really should get back to work. Yeah, I would say that's a decent assessment. And Michael, a.k.a. Dick Warlock, walks up behind Karen and starts kind of caressing her neck. She thinks it's Bud. And she says, "Do you want to go for breakfast later?" Listen, lady, you need to understand something about Bud. He is not interested in hanging out. This guy just wants sex. Also, he's dead. And the murderer is touching your neck right now. And then Michael grabs her by the neck and shoves her face into the boiling water. I don't know whether she drowns or she burns to death. Either way, it is by far the most brutal death in the movie. And somehow his hand doesn't get burned, even though it's clearly in the water. But that is the least of the logical failings in this movie. As we've established, he has been shot 6 or 7 times, depending on which version you're going with. So, obviously, a little burn on the hand is not going to slow him down. And Loomis and Hunt get a report of some kind of activity at a school. They head there and find it's been broken into, and they find a drawing of a family with a knife stuck in it. It seems to be sticking out of the sister of the family. And it's the kitchen knife that Michael stole earlier. And on the chalkboard, it says Sam Hain. That's how Loomis says it, but it's actually pronounced Samhain. And Loomis says it means Lord of the Dead, and it signals the end of summer, which is kind of true, but there's more to it than that. The term is like from the ancient Celtic New Year, and it marks the end of the harvest season. It takes place from October 31st to November 1st. So maybe that explains why Michael's Halloween killing spree is clearly crossing over into the wee hours of November 1st. It's not Halloween 2, it's November 1st. And Marion Chambers from the first movie shows up. She was the nurse that accompanied Loomis to the Smiths Grove mental facility, only to discover that Michael had escaped. She says she has to speak to Loomis, and she tells him that he has been ordered back to Smiths Grove. There's a marshal waiting outside to take him there. And given how he has basically been running around Haddonfield shooting a gun, I kind of get why they're doing that. I'm a little surprised that criminal charges aren't involved, quite frankly. And back at the hospital, Lori has been sleeping, and she's been having all sorts of flashbacks from her youth. She hears her mom tell her that she's not their biological daughter. It's like no one's going to actually tell her that Michael is her brother, so she kind of has to magically figure it out on her own. It's very weird. She also appears to have a vision of her visiting Michael in the mental hospital when he was a boy, which makes no sense. Because Loomis somehow doesn't know that Lori is his sister. So why wasn't he ever like, who is this random child visiting my patient? And Jimmy talks to her again and says, I know you don't know me very well, but I'm not going to let anything happen to you. Which is a fucking weird thing to say. It's very cringe and inaccurate. As we'll soon see, Jimmy is not the hero that he makes himself out to be. And he says all this without realizing that Lori is kind of in a catatonic state. Some EMT he is. He calls the nurse in, and she takes a look at Lori, and she goes looking for Dr. Mixter, She calls his name several times. And what the fuck kind of name is Mixter? Dr. Mixter. It sounds like an early 90s rapper. Is he in any way related to Sir Mix-a-Lot? Who the fuck knows? And the nurse finds Dr. Mixter in his office with a syringe sticking out of his eyeball. And Michael creeps up behind her and does the same thing to her. Tragic. Jimmy gets antsy waiting for the nurse and the doctor to come back, so he goes looking for help. Michael enters Laurie's room and stabs her bed, only to discover that she's not really there. He stabbed a bunch of pillows. She somehow escaped. She tricked Michael the same way the hobbits tricked the Nazgul in Lord of the Rings. How exciting is this? And I guess Laurie is no longer catatonic. Was she faking it the whole time? Who the fuck knows? But she's a bit delirious and she's staggering down the hall. Meanwhile, Jimmy startles a nurse named Jill with a cliche touch on the shoulder. I mean, have you ever done this to another person in real life? Like just walked up behind them and put your hand on their shoulder without saying anything? It happens a lot in horror movies. But I don't think any sane person has ever actually done this in real life. Anyway, Jimmy says Laurie is gone and they have to find her. So they're splitting up, which, of course, is stupid. I know they haven't seen Michael yet. And by the way, he's hiding behind these curtains in this room right now. You can see his shadow right there. But although they haven't seen him yet, they have heard the news. They know a killer is in town and he's on the loose, and that he tried to kill Laurie. And this hospital is nearly deserted, and the phones don't work. Is it really so crazy to think that Michael Myers is here, right now? And if that's the case, why would you split up? It's madness. And they do split up, and Jimmy finds the head nurse dead on a table with a pool of blood dripping on the floor beneath her. Jimmy examines her closely, I guess trying to confirm that she's really dead, which is absurd because there is an ocean of blood on the floor, and she's definitely dead, but he decides to take a closer look. And when he decides to leave, this happens. Oh my God. So this fool slipped and cracked his own fucking head open. This guy might have just died and Michael didn't even have to do anything. Anyway, Nurse Jill isn't quite as incompetent as Jimmy. She searches the hospital and then decides to go to her car to drive to the sheriff's office to get help. But the car won't start, and she sees that the gas is leaking and the tires have been slashed. And she looks around and sees that all the cars in the lot have slashed tires. I mean, Michael Myers, a.k.a. The Shape, a.k.a. Dick Warlock, is very thorough in this movie, is he not? How did he have time to do this? Anyway, she heads back inside and finds Laurie struggling to make her way down the hall. But unfortunately, she also finds Michael, who sneaks up behind her and kills her with the scalpel and even somehow lifts her up off the ground with it. Kind of amazing, but also tragic. And the chase begins. Laurie makes a run for it, and by the way, Jamie Lee Curtis's wig in this movie is absolutely absurd. It is almost on par with Barbara's wig from Night of the Living Dead. I'm just pointing that out for no real reason. And she's hobbled, but she's still able to move faster than Michael because he insists on walking slowly. I mean, if he ran, this movie would be over in no time. She heads down to the basement, or some kind of lower level, and she manages to climb through a small window and narrowly escape Michael, for the time being anyway. She makes it outside and hides in one of the inoperative cars. And while Loomis, Chambers, and the marshal are en route to Smith's Grove, Chambers tells Loomis about a sealed file on Michael Myers that even Loomis didn't know about. She says that Laurie Strode is Michael's sister, And Loomis somehow didn't know this, as I said. I also have no idea where Laurie was when Michael killed his older sister in the first movie. I mean, Laurie was a baby. Was she out trick-or-treating as an infant? I guess so. So Loomis puts it all together, and he knows that Michael is going after Laurie, finally. And he decides to pull his gun out again and point it at the marshal. I mean, you guys really haven't taken this gun away from this guy at this point? He's always waving it around like a lunatic. And the marshal isn't turning around fast enough for Loomis, so he does this.
Dr. Loomis.
Doctor, you're getting yourself into a lot of trouble.
What is it you fellas usually do? Fire a warning shot, right?
I mean, what a nutter Loomis is in this movie. And back in the parking lot, Laurie is still hiding, and Jimmy, of all people, shows up and gets in the driver's seat. This is apparently his car. I mean, what are the odds that Laurie would get into his car? Pretty insane. And Jimmy's not doing well. He's clearly concussed, and he may have brain damage, and he may be dying. There's also a lot less blood on his back than there should be, given the fact that he fell into a lagoon full of it. And he's dazed, and he tells Laurie, "Don't worry, we're getting out of here." He tries to start the car, but of course it doesn't work. He then passes out on the steering wheel, causing the horn to start blaring. I mean, Jimmy is absolutely useless. At this point, I almost hope he's dead. He may be the only person to have accidentally killed himself in a Halloween movie. And of course, the horn is probably signaling Michael that, hey, there's fresh meat in the parking lot. So Laurie quickly pulls Jimmy off the wheel, and then she tries to make a break for it, but she falls to the ground. It seems like she can't walk anymore. But just then, Loomis, Chambers, and the marshal show up, and Laurie tries to call out to them, but she can't quite do it. I mean, how fucking frustrating does this movie need to be? I get that she's been through a lot. She's been injured and drugged. But if you can't summon a little bit of adrenaline to yell out for help in that moment, then I don't know what to tell you. She makes it to her feet. She looks behind her to see that Michael is standing there, and it's almost like she heard the music cue, as if she's a member of the audience. And she looks back, and then she starts running. I mean, it's very weird. Why did she look back in that moment? I have no idea. Anyway, she makes it to the door, but it's locked, which is also crazy. So they lock the door behind them for some reason. She pounds on it, and eventually Loomis lets her in. Michael follows by just walking through the glass. I mean, this guy is insane. Why is he like a mindless zombie? He was clearly like kind of a human in the first movie. But ever since Loomis shot him, he has been like an undead zombie. I have no idea what's going on. And Loomis shoots him again, 5 times this time, which makes sense because he did fire off 1 shot in the car with the marshal, so he should have 5 left, unless, of course, the beginning of this movie is accurate and he is somehow using a 7-shot revolver. And it appears that Michael is dead, but of course, everyone knows he isn't. Chambers heads outside to the marshal's car to radio for help, and the marshal gets a little too close to the Warlock of Dicks, and he wakes up, and he kills the marshal. So Loomis and Laurie make a run for it, and they lock themselves in a room full of ether and oxygen tanks. Laurie falls to the ground in the far corner of the room, and Loomis gives her a spare gun. Probably, I'm guessing that's what he took off the marshal when he held him at gunpoint. And Michael breaks in, and Loomis tries to shoot him, but he's out of ammo. If only he hadn't fired that warning shot in the marshal's car, maybe he'd have one left. But he doesn't. And Michael stabs him in the gut. He then starts walking towards Laurie, and she picks up the gun and fires twice and hits Michael in both eyes. I mean, what a shot. She is literally a dead eye. And now so is Michael. He blindly starts swinging his scalpel around, and Loomis makes it to his feet, and he starts turning on the gas tanks full of ether and oxygen. Laurie does the same for the ones on her side of the room. And if this room is full of ether, they must be high as fuck right now. I wish I was. And Loomis gets Michael's attention, and he tells Laurie to get out of the room. She does, and Michael heads towards Loomis, and Loomis pulls out a little Bic lighter, and he ignites it, which causes a massive explosion. And Michael has to be dead, right? No. He is on fire and still coming after Laurie. I mean, this son of a bitch might as well be Cyberdyne Systems Model 101. But eventually, I guess he can't take the heat, and he falls to the ground. Dead, once and for all, or at least until the next movie that he appears in. And at this point, the sun is coming up, and Laurie is being taken to another hospital. And I hope everyone in this hospital is okay. I mean, I know it seems deserted, and a lot of the nurses on that floor were killed, but there must be patients here, right? I mean, the nurse that Michael kills in the therapy room was assigned to the maternity ward. So there's a bunch of babies somewhere in this hospital. Is everyone all right? That's what I'm asking. I have no fucking clue. In any case, that's the movie. Overall, I don't think it's nearly as good as the first movie, but it is kind of entertaining in its absurdity. And the questions that it asks but refuses to answer are just wild. Like, why is Michael indestructible? We won't find out until the sequels, which reveal that he is, like, possessed by a cult using some kind of magic.
That's what this is, you know. Satanic black magic. Sick shit.
And does Laurie ever actually find out that Michael is her brother? I don't think she does. I don't think there's ever anyone who explains that to her. I mean, I guess she was informed eventually. But she never has a big reveal moment where she is meant to process that fact. Like, she just kind of has some goofy dreams where she kind of puts it together, but not really. I mean, it's very bizarre. She also doesn't have a lot to do in this movie. She doesn't talk a lot, and she spends most of the movie in a hospital bed. And Jimmy, I mean, holy shit, Jimmy. We don't know if he's alive or dead. There is a TV version of this movie that does confirm that he's alive, but that's not at all part of the theatrical version. It's just such a weird character. He flirts with Laurie, does nothing for most of the movie, slips and falls, cracks his fucking head open, and possibly dies. He might be the most useless supporting character in a horror movie. And Loomis was nutty in the first movie, but he is just completely off the deep end in this one. And he is definitely responsible for getting a kid killed, along with whatever cop was driving down that side street at 90 miles an hour. And although Loomis clearly dies in this movie, he ends up in a bunch of the sequels. It is nuts how he shows up in Halloween 4 with nothing more than a little scar on his face. I mean, he was clearly blown to smithereens. It's pretty absurd. But I do kind of like the setting in this movie. I like that it takes place mostly in a half-abandoned hospital. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it gives the whole thing kind of a Die Hard vibe, which I like. I also like that Michael incorporates a lot of hospital tools and accoutrements in his kills. You know, it's like he's embracing the theme. But ultimately, I think this movie is just kind of okay. I don't think it's a must-watch unless you're a Halloween superfan. And personally, I'm probably in the minority, but I really just don't like most of the Halloween sequels or reboots. You know, my second favorite Halloween movie behind the original is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. And that movie has absolutely nothing to do with Michael Myers. And the reason most people hate that movie is the exact reason I like it. And as for the ones that center around Michael, I think the first one is an all-time classic. I think 2, 4, and 5 are okay. 6 is terrible. 7 is okay. 8 is absolutely horrendous. And I think the Rob Zombie Halloween movies are also just awful. I mean, there is nobody to root for in those movies, and everyone is an asshole, including Laurie Strode. And the second reboot trilogy is also, in my opinion, really bad. So, I know I'm the weird one, but for me, the first movie and Halloween 3 are really the only ones that I enjoy watching at this time of year. And as I indicated earlier, the timelines for these movies are absurd. Some of them are connected, but a lot of them aren't. I mean, there are 3 separate timelines that branch off after the first movie. It's kind of nuts, isn't it? I mean, this movie is not rocket science. It's a story about a guy in a Star Trek mask who stalks and kills teenagers on Halloween night. Why did they feel the need to make it so damn complicated? I have no clue. But I think I'm just about tapped out on this one. Let me know what you think of Halloween 2. And feel free to disagree with me on it or any of the other Halloween movies in the franchise. This is just my opinion, and I know I'm in the minority, so don't be afraid to defend the movies that you love. But that is about all I've got for now. I hope everyone has a happy and safe Halloween, and until next time, take it easy.
Is this some kind of joke? I've been trick or treated to death tonight.
You don't know what death is.